Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well today. Today at Chad's Cards, we're going to go over the third base Hall of Fame tracker. And what we're going to attempt to do in this series is see if we can find some relative value between players. Who's on an Hall of Fame track? You really want to buy players or spend the bulk of your money on players. Or I want to spend the bulk of my money on players that are going to have some longevity. I'm not saying that players that aren't on a Hall of Fame track aren't fun to collect, because I've got plenty of those as well. But if you look at players that are in the Hall of Fame, their cards are somewhat timeless, and they hold their value, and they do increase over time. So probably an area where most people want to focus. And so with the third baseman today, let's dig right into it. I lied on the intro or the header. I'm gonna go over about 8 players today. So if we said top 8 players, maybe it doesn't get as much attention as the top 5 thing, which sounds so much sexier. So anyways, let's just get started here. So we'll look at the Hall of Fame. And for third baseman, there aren't that many ads all over the place. I don't want something else. This is different. Not interested in this ad. All right, thanks, Amazon. Just get in the way here. Anyways, technology, love it or leave it, right? All right. So anyways, for third baseman, there aren't that many people in the Hall of Fame. We've got about 14 players here. Mike Schmidt has the highest WAR of all of them with 106.5. Freddie Lindstrom is the lowest with about 27. Wow, they must really think I like Alta here. So anyways, what do you do? And then most recently, you've seen guys like Chipper Jones, George Brett, Wade Boggs, Paul Molitor make it into the Hall of Fame. And what that says is it's ridiculously tough to make it into the Hall of Fame. As a third baseman, you need an average WAR somewhere in the high 60s when you wrap things up. So the guys that we're going to go over today, maybe they're on track for that. No guarantee they get in, but if we can identify the players that make it, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. So let's just get started here. Yeah, so maybe one per decade gets in, because there's a guy that we'll throw in towards the end here that's probably going to take up the spot for the most recent. So of the list I have, who knows, 1, 2, maybe none. We'll just kind of see how this goes here. Starting off with Juan Moncada is kind of my honorable mention here. He's a player that has had one really, really good season in 2019. He's fallen off in 2020. Weighted run created under 100, so kind of an average year for him. Batted 225, 6 home runs, very high strikeout rate. So I wanted to put him in kind of my green tier. He's only 25 years old. He's compiled 10.5 WAR to this point. And he needs to average just under that to age 35. So after we go over these players, I'll show you the spreadsheet and break it down into how we want to figure this out. So he's being priced relatively fair. His 2017 update. There's a bunch of his cards out, so it kind of confuses me on this one. He's got the Series 1 in the Red Sox uniform. He's got Series 1 White Sox, and he's got the update one where it's a White Sox and he's fielding. So I think that's the one people maybe gravitate towards, but I'm not 100% sure. So anyways, decent WAR, a lot of it for his defense. He's a very good defensive player. His offense wasn't that great. It wasn't terrible, but wasn't standout like it was last year, that's for sure. And you can get his rookie card for roughly, the PSA 10 for $30. You can get him for a couple dollars in raw form. So he kind of fits in with the rest of these guys here. So yeah, you can see that his numbers here. Again, not a very good this year. His 2019 was pretty incredible. If he can get back, he's a young player. If he can get back to that, then I think we're in pretty good shape here. Anthony Rendon is going to come in at the 7 spot for me here. And what I like about Rendon is he's a professional hitter, but he doesn't get a whole lot of love in the game or in the hobby. So again, he's got a 35 WAR at age 30. He needs to average about 4.8 to get to that 60 level by age 35. He is signed through age 36, but he doesn't really want to play after that. He's indicated, so that could change. But no guarantee, and he might have to age gracefully to get to that level. So defensively, very good player. Offensively, you can see that his average, he's always been very, very, very consistent here. So 286, 319, 308, 301, 300 hitter. Some decent power. Last year in 2019, a little bit of an outlier, but I think that was the case for everybody. Doesn't walk a lot, walks pretty well, doesn't strike out a whole lot. So just a really solid hitter. You can see that he's had some really nice WARs, when he wasn't hurt. 6, 4, 6, 6, 7. So, if he can keep that up for a few more years, This is a guy who is on the track. So he's had 3 top 10 MVP votes, 1 All-Star game, which is kind of crazy when you look at these years, how you're making only 1 All-Star game. So his 2013 U.S. Update card sells for around $40 in a PSA 10. I think it's creeping up just a little bit here, but I think that's, for what he's been doing, I think that's a really good price. So he'll probably wind up just outside the Hall. Depends on how long he plays. But personally, I have a little personal bias, and I like him. So anyways, moving on to number 6, and that is Mr. Nolan Arenado. So Nolan Arenado really had a pretty lousy season this year. There's no getting around it. 253, not a ton of power. In the past couple of years, 2019, 315 with 41 home runs, just insane. So I think people kind of discount the Coors effect. But again, walks decently, doesn't strike out a ton. That strikeout rate's really kind of, with the exception of 2018, stayed fairly low. So high isolated power, so he does hit, and that might be the Coors effect. BABIP's been pretty consistent, right around a 300 hitter. His defense is insane. We all know that one of the better defenders, if not the best defender, he and Matt Chapman in the league. So he's sitting at about a 9.3. Average player is about a 0. So he's well above the average player at that position. Age 29, he's accumulated 32.2 WAR, and he needs about 4.5 to get to that 60 level by age 35. His 2013. Well, before we get to that, 5 top 10 MVP votes and 5 All-Star games. So he really gets a lot of he gets a lot of hobby love actually. And quite a bit of real baseball love as well. 2013 U.S. Update PSA 10 sells for about $115. You can get the raw for about $30. So when you put that in line with the other guys, you'll see that it kind of sticks out a little bit. But he also has some of the more measurables going for him than other players. So Jose Ramirez. So what are we at? Number 5 here. So just an awesome season. Probably the highest rated third baseman on the season. He'll maybe finish second in the MVP to Jose Abreu for the American League. So really incredible season here. 292 average, 17 home runs. He has been, last year was not that good for, when everybody else was doing well last year, he didn't. But if you go back to 2016 and 2017, some really nice seasons there. He's had some really nice WAR, 4, 6, 8. Here's another season where it would have been around a 7. So 2019 was bad for him, but I suppose you're allowed a stinker here and there. So Jose Ramirez is only 28 years old. He's compiled 27.7 WAR, needs about 4.5. Along with so he's right in there with that Nolan Arenado track. To get to that 60 number, which again may not be enough, but if he can put up some other individual awards, that would really help. So what you're kind of seeing with a lot of these guys is decent walk rate and a low strikeout rate. 2 top 10 MVP votes, 2 All-Star games. Is 2014 tops. I don't know if it's Series 1 or 2, but just tops. Let's go with that. Flagship will go about $50 in a PSA 10. Again, you can get it much cheaper in a raw. So moving on to Mr. Chris Bryant, number 4 on the list here. Whoops, I think we got a lot of... Here, quit covering my stuff. All right, thanks. Chris Bryant is a 28-year-old who's compiled 28 WAR. So if he plays to 100, he'll have 100 WAR, I think. 4.46 WAR to get to that 60 level. Just a brutal year overall. So his WRC plus this year was, anything above 100 is league average. Anything above 130 is elite. And so he's done that 5 of his 7 years. And so he's 4 of his 6 something 4 of his 6 years. Let's go with that. Bad year overall is the bottom line. 206 average, 4 home runs, played half a season. So but he has been a 30 home run guy with a decent average. So there was a few signs last year that that were concerning, and I would say after this season, he went from probably one of the more overrated players, and I think he might be underrated going into next year if he can get back on track. So his offense was kind of stinky. His defense is a little bit below average, but he does have an actual MVP in 2016 too. So he's got 2 top 10 MVP votes, 3 All-Star games, and his 2015 tops PSA 10 goes for about $40. So he's in line with the rest of these guys for the most part. So he may be starting to get forgotten about a little bit here. So maybe a time to if you haven't done anything with Mr. Chris Bryant, maybe a time to check that one out. So I know I've kind of avoided him for a while, but now I'm interested. So number 3, Rafael Devers. All right, Rafael Devers, 23 years old, one of the younger guys on this list, and definitely one of the youngest guy in the top tier. Compiled 8.2 WAR, needs about 4.28 to get to that 60 level by age 35. It was a pretty average season for him overall by WRC plus. Hit about 265. The strikeout rate's a little bit concerning. It's been low the past few years for him. Really climbed up this year. Not a lot of walks, and so that is a bit of a concern. The power was there to an extent, not quite what it was last year, but whose is overall. Offense, defense is atrocious. So if he does get over to first base, then the bar is actually a little bit lower for him. But if he goes to DH, then that could be a bit of an issue, although with Edgar Martinez getting in, that opens the door for players of that type. No individual awards as of yet. His 2018 Top Series 1 goes for about $35 in a PSA 10. And again, if you want to buy it raw, you can get it much cheaper. So, all right, top 2 here, Alex Bregman. Say what you want about Alex Bregman. He's actually his career starting off in pretty historic fashion, although it dropped off this year, and I can't put my finger on why, but something happened. Anyways, this year, WRC plus 122, so better than average, not quite elite. Hit 242 with 6 home runs, so by his metrics, not great by any stretch here, but 13% walk rate, 14% strikeout rate. I mean, it's a good walk rate. It's a nice and low strikeout rate. The isolated power was there. He just wasn't hitting. So there's something in the numbers where there's room for potential improvement. But in all seriousness, he did come into the time when the Astros started to cheat. And we'll see what in his first year without that wasn't good. So we'll see if that's a problem next year, if he can bounce back next year. This is a guy with all the talent in the world here, so we'll have to monitor that and see how it goes. But again, 26 years old, 21.5 WAR accumulated, which is he came in young with a quick start, and that's what you're looking for here. So 4.23 WAR. He's average per season up to age 35 to hit that 60 number. He's got 2 top 10 MVPs already, 2 All-Star games. And his 2017 rookie card sells for in a PSA 10 between $35 and $40. Again, the raw much cheaper. So there may be there's probably not a player with more question marks on the list. It may be a perfectly valid price, although it seems pretty cheap at this point. So we'll wrap it up here with the top 10 with Mr. Manny Machado, and this is my favorite player on the list here. So he's been good for a very long time. So his average. He's got a 280 career average. He's already got 223 home runs. Third best player by WAR after Devers and Rendon this year with a 2.6. He's 28 years old. He's accumulated already 35.8 WAR, and to get to that 60 WAR number by age 35, he needs 3.4. And so he is well on his way here. Again, the defense is very solid. Put him in that Padres lineup, hitting ahead of Tatis. And with the other players in that lineup, I mean, take him out of the Orioles. He was good with the Orioles, and he was great with the Padres. If he can keep it going here, this is a guy that has the best chance to make the Hall of Fame overall. So far, he does have 3 top 10 MVP votes, 4 All-Star games, and his 2013 tops goes for about $60 in a PSA 10, and that's just slightly higher than some of those other guys. He's on a little bit better track, so the price is justified. But we'll dig into the cards overall and make that comparison in just a minute here. So overall, looking at these tiers, kind of separate them out into who's on track, who's maybe more speculative, but maybe has an outside shot, and then players that, for one reason or another, probably aren't going to make it. And not saying that any of these guys are not collectible by any stretch. What I am saying is, for longevity purposes, maybe not the ones you want to go after with a high value, unless you're planning on, when they have Mike Franco has a ridiculous hot streak. You plan on selling some of his stuff here. So you can see that they can have great seasons in their own right, but for one reason or another, mostly due to age and not putting up a ton of WAR at an early age, I'm going to take them out of my consideration for going too nuts on them. So I do like Justin Turner. He had an incredible season, having a great playoff, but he's 35 years old with 27 more. Probably not happening for him to get to that 60. Evan Longoria, injuries kind of robbed him of a lot. So he's 35 years old, but he already has, with 50 WAR. But again, is he going to be able to put up a couple 5 WAR seasons at this point in the game? Probably not. Yandy Diaz, Jeff McNeil, terrific seasons, but they're already 28 and 29 years old, and they haven't put up a ton of WAR. So the guys that start to interest me a little bit are in the yellow here. And it's kind of interesting. Matt Chapman is the guy that I'm really, really high on, but he is 27 years old, 16 WAR, and a lot of that comes from defense. He strikes out a ton, and that's a red flag, I suppose, at this point here. So he needs a little over 5 WAR. So I put him in the yellow zone here because maybe he can do it with that defense. If he can keep this going for another 5 years, if he can put up 6-7 WAR seasons, MVP, or elite level, it doesn't have to be MVP level, but close to, then he's right back on track. So he's interested. I still like him. Kaboom and Riley, they are on the list. Mostly because of their age. They haven't really produced any WAR, and I think they're actually slightly negative, but I'm nice and just give them 0. Otherwise, the math doesn't gets a little bit messy here. So they need to start putting up 5-6 WAR seasons and keep that going for a while. So and their prices overall, they kind of reflect that. It seems like $30 is kind of the floor here. So Austin Riley, a touch more for whatever reason, but the rest of these guys $35, which seems pretty fair because you're seeing that a lot in here as well. So Devers might be a little bit cheap. Arenado gets a lot of hobby love, and there's the Rockies effect perhaps, and he's put up some individual awards, but I think that's one of two things here. So either this price maybe needs to slide back down a little bit, but he's so good, I don't know if that happens, or these guys are going to start to get recognized for what they're doing and start to increase. So 2013 update series, I don't think there's any question that the print run for that is way different than what you saw in 2017, 2018. And so there could be a supply factor here, but I think some of these guys have room to go up. Well, if Arenado stays the same or Arenado slides back, which I don't think is as likely. So, so that's kind of what I'm seeing on this. I appreciate input. What do you think? Is this of any help at all, or anything else we should be looking at? Oh, 2 bonus guys. So of the top 10 guys, that are. Let's go back to this right here. So there's a couple guys that aren't on this list here, but their stats really, well, it shows you how high the bar is. So of the players with the highest WAR for third base that aren't in, at 84.1 WAR overall is Adrian Beltre, and I imagine he'll be in a few years here. But Scott Rowland put up 70 WAR, and it doesn't look like he's going to make it in. So you can see how the bar is kind of crazy here. So even if you get to 60, it may not be enough. You're going to have to fill this up just a little bit as well and be a little bit of a generational player. And again, who knows if any of these guys make it, but they at least have a chance. But the Hall is a finicky thing. But if you can get it right, that Mike Schmidt 73 tops, in a PSA 8, that's a $700 card. So, the Hall of Famers do hold their value. Adrian Beltre, you can get his raw for like $30, and maybe that's a good time to pick it up because he probably will be making it into the Hall very shortly. So, all right, that's what I have for you for third baseman. We'll have hopefully a special opening this weekend for Halloween, and then we'll start and get into the postseason stuff with update and Stadium Club Chrome and all that kind of good stuff. So enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for watching. Take care.